What a series. What a start to this very young season, man. And I'm just saying it right now. If there's one thing that I'm not going to do, it's that I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm not going to make the same mistake that I made last year and say that this team has figured it out and this team is legit. But how can you not enjoy what the Pirates did on opening day weekend down in Miami, man? Just what a great series overall. More into it right after I introduce myself. What's going on, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video on this Monday morning. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link down in the box below. No April Fool's joke, man. The Pirates are 4-0 as we go down to Miami and we sweep the Miami Marlins in a 4-game series. I already talked about the first 2 games individually, and I'm just going to talk about the last 2 of this series here. Overall, I mean, were they perfect games? No, they weren't. But overall, man, just a really good series. And I'm going to start with Easter Sunday. I mean, you see that this team is just able, like they did Thursday afternoon on opening day. This team is built to come back from a deficit. And you see that everybody's getting involved. Everybody's playing their cards. Everybody's contributing. But, you see stuff like with the shaky starting pitching, like Bailey Falter. I think he is definitely the weakest link of this rotation. He got smacked around like he usually does. Gave up 5 runs in the first inning, mainly by Jazz Chisholm hitting a grand slam to make it 5-0 Miami. He kind of settled down a little bit after that, and then he gave up another solo homer. When the Bucks were mounting a comeback, they cut it to 5-4, but then the Marlins got a hold of him again, hit a solo homer to make it 6-4. But then in comes Luis Ortiz. And almost what immediately makes up for this rotation is by far the bullpen. Because in just 2 innings, Luis Ortiz limited the damage, and I mean, he really limited it, allowing no hits. Yeah, he only had the couple of strikeouts, but when this guy comes on the mound, you just have the sense that he's there, he's confident, he pitches with purpose, he has conviction, he has command. No one, and I mean no one, is getting a hold of this guy. And you see a guy who's just out there to do his job. And Luis Ortiz is just that guy. Keeping us in the game, allowing the offense to have some sort of a spark to them. And you know where I'm going with this. How about what the offense did? And, you're not just seeing it from like the big names. You're seeing it because this team just has a lot of depth in the lineup. And, we got off to an amazing start last season as well. We were 20-8 through 28 games last year. But I got to tell you, this team overall just feels different. Not because they're getting results, not because they're scoring runs, not because they're winning games. But I feel like they're different because they're more mature than last year. A lot of the players last year, they were kind of playing in over their heads a little bit. Like you didn't expect, a 34-year-old Andrew McCutchen last year to be the team leader in a lot of stuff. You didn't expect this team to be top 5 in home runs last year, a top 5 offensive team this time last year. But now, like I said at the beginning, everyone on this team has one more year of experience. And I think the one guy that I will give credit to for this series, you got to give credit to Derek Shelton in this series. Yes, I'm saying it. I still can't stand the guy. I still don't think that he's the right manager. but you got to give him credit for this series because he knows now what this team, for the most part, what this team's lineup's strengths and weaknesses are. That's why O'Neal Cruz was batting towards the bottom of the order so much in this series, because he knows that, he struggles against lefties. So does Jack Sawinski. McCutchen was off to a rough start. He got the bench Saturday. Alika Williams, he needed to come on, get some experience. He was in the starting lineup yesterday. And all he did was open up the scoring, and he was putting down basic fundamentals. The thing that I love that I saw the Pirates do yesterday in the comeback, they were getting on via bunts, back-to-back bunt base hits. Alika Williams, sacrifice bunt, well, maybe not bunt base hits, but they were bunting yesterday. Alika Williams, sacrifice bunt, moving the runners up. Jason DeLay, who usually starts on Sundays for us, he had a bunt RBI. Why? Because both him and Shelton knew the kind of speed that O'Neal Cruz has at third base. Well, the speed that he has. And when he's at third base and you're trying to cut this deficit even further, that's what you got to do. You don't got to knock it out of the park. And again, I know I have that look on my face where I can't wait to talk about the big hit of the game for the Buccos. But when you're just trying to mount a comeback and you're trying to just win the game in general, the little things win you games. I just see a team that's more mature. I see a team that's getting excited because they know they can come back from deficits like this, because they have experience, and because they know that they can win games both with power and the small balls. And when I saw Jason DeLay's RBI bunt, because of O'Neal Cruz's speed, because he was at third base, because they weren't trying to do too much, because O'Neal Cruz started at second base in extra innings yesterday in the 9-7 win, which the Pirates were down 5-0 in the first inning. Another remarkable comeback by this team. It just shows you all you need to know about this team. I really don't think anyone's really playing in over their heads. Not even O'Neal Cruz, because like I said, he struggles against lefties. We got the Washington Nationals next. I feel like, he's going to be top of the order for this series. The Nationals, they don't really have a ton of lefty pitchers, so expect O'Neal Cruz to be higher up in the lineup. Edward Olivares, maybe you want to say him. He's playing over his head a little bit because this was his first series as a Pirate. All he did was go 4 for 12 this series, and he batted .333 this series. He had a great series. He was driving in runs. He was knocking base hits. Connor Joe does well against lefties. He started first base most of the series. He had a really good series. Offensively and defensively, in my opinion, one of the most underrated aspects of opening day is how he won us the game pretty much on Thursday. If he doesn't sprawl out and make that diving play on that double play at first base Thursday night, the Pirates probably lose in extra innings. Connor Joe, phenomenal series. Aroldis Chapman, wow. This guy still has it. I made a video when we first got him, because a lot of people are like, oh, he's washed up. Oh, he don't have it anymore. He's just a journeyman at this point. I said that this guy was going to be a valuable asset with the back end of the bullpen for a reason. He's a veteran. He can still, at age 35 years young, he can still whip it over 100 miles an hour. He was in control yesterday, setting down the Marlins. Very uncharacteristic for David Bednar to give up the solo homer. I mean, no pitcher is ever gonna go through a season not giving up a homer. So in the end, David Bednar did end up getting the win, though. But the The bullpen is just phenomenal once again. Outside of that, that's probably the only bad thing that the bullpen's done so far. You know, David Bednar doesn't really do that on a consistent basis. When it does happen, it's incredibly rare, but still, David Bednar, really good outing for him. I would say he did enough to earn the win. And then the big one for the Pirates yesterday. Rowdy Tellez, with this team down 6-4, a guy who was injured for Milwaukee most of last season, a guy who definitely does have pop in his swing, who hit 35 homers a couple of years for the Brewers, comes up to the plate, crushes a ball to center field, and the Pirates lead at 7-6 on a 3-run homer. What an acquisition Rowdy Tellez has been so far. I mean, well, maybe not so far. I mean, he was kind of quiet in this series, but man, I think this guy could be a valuable DH for us if he can hit a ball that far. Maybe not so much a good fielder. I really don't think he's all that when it comes to fielding. But if you want a guy that's going to come up and give you about 20, 25 homers a year, maybe even pushing it to 30, Rowdy Tellez is your guy. He just dominated that pitch. And it wasn't even so much the home run either. It was the at-bat that he had. He was fouling off pitches left and right. He was making that reliever for the Marlins work. I don't remember who it was, but he was making him work. And eventually Greg Brown said something like, you keep battling him off like that, you keep spoiling pitches, you're going to get a mistake pitch eventually. What do you know? 95-mile-an-hour meatball right down middle of the plate. Tellez did not miss it. Hit that thing a country mile, 7-6 buckos. It's just so refreshing to see, man, because this was a team that scored the least amount of runs in the National League. And all the Pirates did in this series, 6 on opening day, 7 on Friday, and then 18 runs combined on Saturday and Sunday, 9 each of them. If you're doing the math at home, the Pirates have scored 31 runs in 4 games. We're averaging over 7 runs a game. Now, I know they're not going to keep doing that for the whole season, but it's so refreshing to see this team go out there, have quality at-bats, knocking starters out, getting to starters, getting their pitch counts up, having their team go to the bullpen, and just find ways to get on base, find ways to manufacture runs, find ways to power the ball. And like I said, everybody's getting involved. Jared Jones, Saturday, man, what a debut he had. 10 friggin' strikeouts in his debut. Ke'Bryan Hayes continues to swing the bat well. O'Neal Cruz continues to swing the bat well. It's like everybody is contributing with this team, maybe except Andrew McCutchen and Henry Davis so far, but I'm not too concerned about it. It's still very early in the season. They got plenty of time to get their knack together. But, man, how can you not love what this team did to the Miami Marlins over this past weekend? It's just so beautiful to see. Now, like I said, the Marlins, I think, are still a quality team. This was a team that was in the playoffs last year. 4 games doesn't really define your whole season. It's still fun to see. Now we head on to the nation's capital to play the Nationals. That's a 3-game series. We play 1 game tonight for their home opener, and then we have tomorrow off. Then the next 2 are Wednesday and Thursday. I'm not going to be covering every single game, but I will try to have recaps out. And then we have our home opener against the Baltimore Orioles Friday, 4:12 first pitch. The Orioles are a quality team. They may not be in first place right now, but they're a quality team. You can't sleep on them. And then after that, we got the Detroit Tigers. In my opinion, very underrated team. They swept the Chicago White Sox. So these next couple of series, like I said, big test for the Buccos. Maybe not it's not the hardest of schedules coming up, but it's certainly not a cakewalk either. Washington, I mean, sure, it's a team we should beat. They're in a rebuild phase as well. You have to go out there, treat every game. I know it's the most cliche sounding thing ever. You have to go out there and treat every game like you're playing a playoff team. Baltimore, like I said, they're a quality team. You got to come in ready for them. And even with Detroit, you got to come in ready for them. I would not sleep on the Tigers this year. The White Sox may not be a good team either, but Detroit, they did what they needed to do. They swept the White Sox. I mean, hey, after all, the A's beat Cleveland yesterday to avoid a sweep. You got to continue the execution against these teams. It looks like the Pirates are doing a little bit of a better job with cutting down on the strikeouts over the last 3 games. They're taking advantage of runners on a little bit better now. The shaky starting rotation has to get it together, and I think that starts with Mitch Keller. Jared Jones, if this guy's going to be in the rotation, just keep on what you're doing, man. Martin Perez, really good game on Friday night. But Bailey Falter has to get it together, man. So we'll see how it goes. But overall, we're 2-0. We're 4-0. 4-0, man. You want to know the last time the Pirates started 4-0 with a road sweep to begin the season? Well, you got to go back to the year 1903. I'm not kidding you. 1903. That was before even my great-grandmother was born. And you want to know what happened in 1903? The Pirates were in the first ever World Series in 1903. Knock on wood, we swept a 4-game series against the Miami Marlins on the road. And we're 4-0. Fourth time in the last 40 years. Basically a 4-0 start every 10 years. But man, a 4-game sweep on the road to begin the season. What a way to begin. So, like I said, 3 against Washington. I would love a sweep, but all you really got to do is take 2 out of 3 against those guys. And I'm fine with that. But man, what a start to the series, man. What a start to the season, man. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'm Mac, checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.